through the list of topic and expert today reveals that the amazing diversity of our discussion in addressing the challenges and opportunities in fostering the global creative economy, ranging from social cohesion, regulation, marketing, to the ecosystem and financing. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the discussion on fostering world creative economy is timely, as the world is in a global economic vitality. The creative economy sector show that it is crisis-proof and even show significant growth during the global economic crisis. During the period of 2003 until 2015, this is the worst parts of the economic growth in the world. According to UNCTAD, world creative product grew 7.3%. The inclusive nature of a creative economy contributes in the alleviation of several major global challenges, such as youth unemployment, gender inequality, and poverty reduction. The barrier for entry into global value chain has also significantly lowered, thanks to the technology such as the internet, 3D printing, crowdsourcing, and augmented reality that act as a tool for collaboration, while also serve as a digital distribution. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we began our journey in the 5th to the 7th of December 2017 during the first preparatory meeting of the WCCE in Bandung, which was attended by merely 12 countries and more than 100 stakeholders. The meeting highlighted important points of the recommendation at that time, including calls for political commitment from the international community, including the support international organization, calls for collaboration of the international community at the bilateral and multilateral level, and calls for the government support for private sector participation in all aspects of planning and implementation of regulation related to the creative economy. On 2nd to 3rd of May 2018, we continue the discussion during the second preparatory meeting of the WCCE that was held at the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the time, more than 150 participants from 58 countries and 5 international organizations, academicians, media, and civil society attended and contributed to the discussion for the 2 days. The meeting included a discussion of thematic issues on addressing inequality and common ground on creative economy, and an initiative to establish what we are now Friends of Creative Economy. Friends of Creative Economy is expected to formulate the outcome of the 2018 WCCE document, including the preparation of instruments for mainstreaming creative economy issues in the multilateral realm. We did not stop there, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. To follow up mainstreaming the issue of creative economy, Indonesia, alongside with MIKTA countries, hosted a side event on the sideline of the 73rd United Nations General Assembly at the UN headquarters. In the New York event, more than 150 participants attended the event, and the event aimed to enhance global cooperation and partnership in promoting the role and contribution of creative economy to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, explore measures to scale up creative economy and its industry to promote culture, innovation, and ingenuity, and last but not least, to exchange views, sharing of ideas among officials, experts, and other key stakeholders. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, here we are now at the very first meeting of the Friends of Creative Economy, and I hope today we will carry on the spirit of the preparatory meetings and have a productive session on concerted effort to foster the growth of inclusive global creative economy. We assemble here to explore best practices, experiences not only from the perspective of government as a policymaker, but we also expect insight from the ground, from wide arrays of multi-stakeholders in the creative industry. And I'm grateful to the many experts who have come to share their knowledge today, and welcome the many representatives of academicians, business people, community, government, international organizations, and also media who have joined us. I'm sure you will have a fruitful and rewarding exchanges today, and I'm sure this meeting is not only a one-off meeting, but we will have a series of meetings in the future. So for that, I wish you every success with this important meeting, and I look forward to learning about the outcome. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Rudyard, for the remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, now I have the honor to invite Mr. Ricky Pasig, Vice Chairman of the Creative Economy Agency of KRAF of the Republic of Indonesia, to deliver his keynote remarks. Mr. Pasig, you may have the floor.
Pak Febrian, from Director General from Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bu Enda, Deputy from KRAF, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you all, and welcome to Bali, and also welcome to the Friends of Creative Economy session in World Conference on Creative Economy 2018. It is an honor for me to share my insights at the auspicious gathering among Friends of Creative Economy here in the sideline of the first World Conference on Creative Economy. The conference is dedicated as a platform or education barrier. It lies on the creativity of the human mind and its ability to invent new ideas. Creative economy, therefore, is accessible to all. That is why the theme for this year's conference is inclusively creative. Inclusive because creative economy provides equal economy opportunity for everyone with creative minds. That is why at this stage it's very important for us to share some of our thoughts why the concept inclusively creative is critically important. In a world where natural resources are depleting, countries throughout the world are moving from community-dependent economy into ideas-dependent economy or creative economy. In Indonesia, as in any other parts of the world, creative economy is of growing importance. Last year alone, in 2017, it contributes up to more than 1,000 trillion rupiah, or equal to 70 billion US dollar, to Indonesia's GDP, or around 7.4% of our total GDP, and become source of employment for 17.4 million Indonesians, or almost 50% of total employment. At the global level, global trade in creative industry have shown sustained growth even in times of economic crisis. During 2008, global economic and financial crisis, when other sectors contracted, creative service recorded positive growth in Indonesia. But the growth of creative economy is not without its challenges. Creative economy is facing some serious threat that, if left unaddressed, will compromise its growth. From financing, product development, and marketing, creative economy players are facing challenges that will prevent them to grow their businesses. The majority of creative economy players are mostly small and medium enterprises, or SMEs, and I believe the same holds true in other countries. They rely on new policy and strategy to help them find solutions to the challenge that still become the barrier of their growth. And I believe international cooperation is the key in this regard. This is the underlying reason why Indonesia is hosting this very first World Conference on Creative Economy. Creative economy has the potential to greatly contribute to the 2030 Agenda Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Inclusiveness means there's a minimum or even non-existent barrier to entry and provide answer to many of world's problems, not just for economic challenges, but the nature of creative economy offer means to address social and even security challenges on national, regional, and global levels. Our international cooperation holds the key to sustaining creative economy's growth. We hope this conference can lead us to the better and stronger international cooperation on creative economy. Through this conference, I hope we can reaffirm our commitments and produce concrete outcomes. There are 2 preparatory meetings have been held leading to this conference. The first preparatory meeting was done on 5 to 7 December 2017 in Bandung City, West Java. And the second preparatory meeting was held in May 2018 in Jakarta at the Office of Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Indonesia. I believe the 2 preparatory meetings have laid solid foundation for this conference. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, the conference is comprised of series of meetings, including Friends of Creative Economy that we have today, as well as the ministerial meeting which will be held tomorrow at 1:30, I believe. Community members of creative economy, which comprise of academicians, business people, civil society, international organizations, government, and the media, are here today with us, and they are who we refer to as Friends of Creative Economy, and under the leadership of Ibu Enda as the deputy who hosts this conference, has been instrumental in this establishment, who will later, she will lead as a chair of the FCE and inform you more background information about the FCE session. Moreover, we are hopefully that FCE can also produce solid recommendations on various aspects of creative economy. Your invaluable thoughts and recommendations are what we hope to gain from these meetings. We will make sure that your idea will not vanish into thin air. By the end of your meeting today, the chairperson, facilitated by the secretariat, will hopefully produce a report or a declaration which is subsequently reported to the ministerial meeting tomorrow. Creative economy provides more than just economic opportunities. It can serve as a bridge of communication, understanding and trust between countries and cultures in a world which looks increasingly fragmented. Fostering creative economy will mean more than just providing economic opportunities for people across the globe, but also creating better understanding between people from different cultural backgrounds. In other words, it is a powerful tool not only for economic growth, but also for social cohesion. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, before I closing my remarks, keynote, I would like to explain you a bit about the slideshow in this video. This is a new gallery established by our agency, KRAF, a month ago. This new gallery was built only 30 days to prepare a parallel event for 3 conferences. The first one is for IMF World Bank Group Annual Meeting 2018. The second one is our Ocean Conference, and this is the last session for this exhibition is for World Conference on Creative Economy. That's all conference held in this convention centers. Art Bali exhibit 35 artists, Indonesian prominent artists, and around 50 works. It's only 200 meters from this convention center, so you can walk during your breaking session to see all these Indonesian prominent artist works that we will close on 9th of November. It's left only 3 days. So I hope you can enjoy also what all these Indonesian contemporary arts all about. I'm hopefully that our discussion today will continue, and I'm sure your views are not exhausted. In the next 2 days, I'm pleased to note that we will continue to exchange views on the way forward and the importance of collaborations. I am confident that your ideas and insight on this matter are just as important, if not more. It is my fervent hope that this conference can produce concrete outcomes for the benefit of all stakeholders of creative economy. Throughout the 3 days conference, we will discuss a wide range of issues and attempt to lay a path to the brighter future for creative economy. Finally, I encourage all of us to work together for a more conducive environment that fosters creativity. To that end, discussion between stakeholders are the vital importance, and I wish this conference can deliver what we all hope for. I invite you to share your creative mind to one another. And I would like to close with a quote from a famous band, a lyric from a famous band talking about the creative industry. This is from a very famous band called Play. The lyric is a sky full of stars. 'Cause you are a sky, 'cause you are a sky full of stars, I'm gonna give you my heart. 'Cause you are a sky, 'cause you are a sky full of stars, 'cause your light up the path. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us bring the creative industry become the star of the world. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prasik, for the keynote remarks. Now I would like to invite for the delegations from the government officials, our speakers for the session today, and the international organization to take a photo session in front of the stage. You are pleased to come forward and take a photo session together. For the first photo session, we would like to kindly invite the delegation from government officials and representatives, the international organizations, and our speakers for today. For the second session, we will invite all participants to join the photo session. For the next photo session, we would like to invite all other participants to join the photo session. May we invite all participants to come to the stage and take a photo together. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, and now we would like to kindly request all participants to return to your seats, and we will soon begin with our first session. May we invite all participants to return to their seats as we will soon commence with our first session. Thank you very much. During this morning session, may I announce you that there will be no coffee break. Coffee and tea for the delegation will be served to your table, and for the others, the coffee and tea are served behind you. Thank you very much. Once again, we would like to kindly request all participants to return to your seat as we will soon commence with the meeting. Thank you very much. May we once again kindly request all participants to return to your seats as we will soon commence with our session. Thank you very much. May once again we call all participants to kindly return to your seats. Thank you. Once again, before we start our session, we would like to kindly invite all the participants to return to their seats. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Allow me to introduce our chair for this session this morning, Ms. Enda Sulistiani, Deputy of Interagency and Inter and Regional Relations of Creative Economy Agency of the Republic of Indonesia. Before appointed as Deputy of Interagency and Regional Relations of Creative Economy Agency, Ms. Enda Sulistiani is well known for her work in media industry, including journalism, documentary, and media production. She has plenty of experiences working as news producers at prominent national TV stations and radios. She was awarded Piala Citra at the Indonesian Film Festival for the Best Short Documentary category. Ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, please welcome the chair of the first meeting of Friends of Creative Economy, Ms. Enda Sulistiani.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to join our previous speaker in warmly welcoming all of you, the pentahelix of the creative economy, namely academicians, business, communities, government, agencies, and media. I cannot thank enough to you for being here and taking part in the first Friends of Creative Economy or FCE meeting. In particular, those of you who have traveled from far away to be with us, welcome to Bali. Hopefully that last night you have slept well. Please enjoy this island, warm island and not very humid island. I should first of all thank to Pak Riki Pesik, the Vice Chairman of Indonesia Creative Economy Agency, and Pak Febrian, the DG for multilateral cooperation of the Indonesian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, for their inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, distinguished guests, since time is not on our side, and we have several topics to discuss, I suggest that we proceed with the next theme, which is adoption of agenda. Are there any comments with the adoption of agenda that I believe that you already have copies on your desk? If none, any comment of that? If none, we may continue. Any comment of the adoption of agenda? Okay. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, earlier our previous speaker have highlighted the importance of FCE in the development of the world creative economy. I wish to provide some backgrounds as to the rationale behind the establishment of the Friends of Creative Economy, or in short, FCE. Creative economy is of growing importance to many countries. Economic well-being. As among the most dynamic economic sector, creative economy has proven to provide significant contributions to a state's revenues, jobs creation, and wealth distribution. Due to its growing importance, creative economy has become engine of growth in many countries. The strength of creative economy lies in its inclusiveness. Sectors of creative economy such as visual art, architecture, publishing, performing arts, gaming, film and music, among others, heavily relies on talents and creative minds. Due to its inclusively characteristic, the positive effect of creative economy has the potential to permeate to other aspects of societies. creative economy even has the potential to address not only economic challenges, but also social and even security challenges. As the new prospective engine of economic growth, creative economy provide answers to the existing traditional and non-traditional security threats. Inclusiveness as one of the main qualities of creative economy can offer equitable distribution of income, which addresses inequality and injustice, which contributes to maintaining security and stability. Creative economy can also strengthen economic ties between countries, bringing people-to-people context to a higher level. Realizing the importance of creative economy, Indonesia believes through global cooperation, partnership, and collaboration, countries could reap maximum benefits from creative economy. Indonesia is of the view that providing an answer to this world's most pressing challenges through strengthening creative economy is worth international collaborations. Based on this premise, the first World Conference on Creative Economy was initiated. Prior to WCCE, Indonesia, as mentioned before by Mr. Febri, Indonesia hosted the first preparatory meeting held in December 2017 in Bandung, West Java of Indonesia. The first preparatory meeting came to a conclusion that social cohesion policy, marketing, and building the ecosystem are part of the roadmap towards stronger creative economy. The meeting discussed the concept of inclusivity and agreed to bring inclusively creative as the main theme of the conference that now we are today here together. The second preparatory meeting was hosted in Jakarta in May 2018 that launched the FCE. That was the kickoff of FCE as an informal grouping that comprises of government, official, complemented by relevant international organizations and other relevant stakeholders that share the importance of addressing key challenges and opportunities of the creative economy. To ensure the effectiveness, Indonesia believes that the member of FCE should be as inclusive as possible, that comprises of policymakers, private sector, international organizations, academics, media, innovators, and other key stakeholders of creative economy. Therefore, I pleased that the first FCE meeting is very much diverse as expected, and it's already fully booked, and I believe that all representatives from stakeholders already here to discuss together with us. At the first and the second preparatory meetings of the FCE, under the theme of Inclusively Creative, 4 topics of creative economy were discussed and summarized in chair summary, which comprises the topic of social cohesion, policy, marketing, ecosystem, and financing. The Friends of Creative Economy is invited to further discuss this topic in item 2, 3, and 4, and 5, and hopefully that we can finish by today before 5 p.m. I'm pleased to note that we have among us experts and moderators here, also some experts from UNDP, UNESCO, UNCTAD, DH, UNIDO, IDB, and also we have here Laura Anderson, Dr. Tita Larasati from Institute of Technology, Bandung, and also Nicholas Buchot and other experts that I could not mention all here. I'm pleased to note that we have among us that experts and moderators, and I'm hopeful that all of us will be able to share respective view and insight. Before I continue, hopefully that from the floor, any comments and views, because we're gonna like having parallel discussion after this. If there's no comments and insight and views, so we continue with the agenda, the following agenda. The following agenda will be the agenda 2, social cohesion, social impact of creative economy. For our second agenda, I would like to kindly invite Dr. Marisa Henderson, Chief of Creative Economy Program of UNTAD, United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, to start as the lead speaker for this session to present her remarks. But before you start, may I start a video presentation about how, the connection between, because we're gonna talk about the social impact of the creative economy. We're gonna show a video presentation about the connection between creative economy and the SDGs. The operator ready for the video? Please.
In 2016, the Indonesia Creative Economy
Jailolo, the Jailolo video. Sorry, that will be some delay. Miss Marisa, Dr. Marisa, sorry to interrupt before, because this video will give some backgrounds about how an island in Indonesia have some impactful from creative economy with their society after some interferences on creative economy. Already now? Okay, that's one small example how impactful the creative economy to the society. And now, please, Dr. Marisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting us and hosting this incredible conference to the government in Indonesia. It's an incredible initiative which we support. Can you get it closer? Okay. So I just wanted to make a very brief introduction, because what I'd like to hear is from you, actually, and from our experts. What we discovered in UNCTAD is that the creative economy can have an incredible effect in catalyzing and fostering economic growth, development, and particularly employment, creation, in youth, which is very, very important for countries such as Indonesia. We discussed these issues, and in all the different flyers, you will find the butterfly effect. We discussed the social impact in previous preparatory conferences. And we have seen, what we can see in UNCTAD is that it cannot just be done on its own. We have to help countries foster and develop the creative economies. In developing countries and least developed countries, what we see is that there is a lack of understanding of these industries. And in particular in least developed countries, what we see is that there is no infrastructure for youth and creators to develop, or very little infrastructure for youth to flourish. So I think it is very important for us to discuss the regulatory framework, to discuss the education, how we're going to foster creative economies from school. The other thing that we notice in some countries is that the creative economy is mainly populated by the informal economy. Particularly, this happens in least developed countries. So there is a lack of understanding of how the creative economy works, and we cannot provide policies based on data. So we also have a responsibility, I think, to understand more these creative sectors. For example, in Algeria, we are trying to, with the creative economy program, we are trying to capture the informal sector of the creative economy and bring them into the formal sector. That's a crucial impact, a crucial need that we have in countries like in least developed countries. Before we can actually have a proper export strategy, we need to nurture the sector for social cohesion. So I would like to hear from our speakers and from the public your experiences on how the creative economy, according to your own work, countries and environment, business, how you've seen the social impact of the creative economy, and how, for example, the video we see, if maybe in a small city or in a village, how can the creative economy has had an impact on social cohesion? That's my introduction. I will come back to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Before we giving comments and insight. Shall we continue with Mr. Abdurrahim Boybrawi? I would like to invite the Deputy Chairman for Research and Education and Development in KRAF to give his intervention. Please.
Thank you very much, Ms. Enda. I think I have a presentation that I would like to bring today. It is the concerning what the KRAF has done, or Indonesian government has done in the field of creative economy in order to achieve the sustainable development goals. Okay, next. In September 2015, the General Assembly has adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The agenda emphasizes a holistic approach to achieving a sustainable development for all. So in this case, the creative economy has a crucial role to play in SDG. It is an important engine of economic growth. It contributes directly to many of the SDG, from decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, to reduce the inequalities, sustainable cities, and to promote the gender equalities. Next. The creative economy has a significant impact not only on the economy, but also on society at large. In terms of its contribution to the national economy, the creative economy can be measured in 3 different parameters. The first one is contribution to the national GDP. The second one is contribution to fight the unemployment. And the third one is contribution to national export. I will not explain about this slide because I think you already handed the material which include the similar data of this. Next. As we know that creative economy can be a potential tool to address the social problems in various countries, including in Indonesia. It can help to reduce the poverty, to increase the social welfare, and also to promote the gender equality. And this is also happened in Indonesia, as it can be seen in the characteristic of Indonesian creative economy. There are 8.2 million creative business units which dispersed throughout the nation. The number are expected to grow in 2.5% in 2019. The creative industry sector is characterized by a large number of small and micro business, self-employed. So in this industry, you can find a lot self-employment, entrepreneurship, and business startup. The creative industry in Indonesia is dominated by women workers, in which about 55.7% of workers in this field are women. The industry provide a significant contribution to youth employment, in which about 60% of them are in the productive age, which is around 15 to 35 years old. However, the labor force in Indonesia is dominated by low-level education. Next. In addition to the economic benefit, creativity and culture also generate non-monetary value that contribute significantly to achieve inclusive and sustainable development. It can be act as the driver of human and sustainable development. It empowers people to take ownership of their own development, to stimulate innovation and creativity in the society. The collaboration of stakeholders in ecosystem is the key success in creative economy. The collaboration and sharing of idea and knowledge between stakeholders will create new idea and more creative good that create more value for all. In this case, the Indonesian government has a strong collaboration with many stakeholders, not only from inside the country, but also outside of the country. For example, we have cooperated with 7 universities in Indonesia to establish a research center of excellence which aim to carry out the research and also to be an incubation hub in the field of creative economy. We also have a strong collaboration with foreign stakeholders. For example, we have cooperated with Torino Film Lab, which focus on the human resource development, with Tribeca, which aim to broaden the financial access to in the film industry. So we have a lot of collaboration in this case. Next. The holistic intervention is another important factor to be success in creative economy, which ranging from the creation of idea, production, up to market distribution. The intervention is aimed not only to form a better and conducive ecosystem, but also to ensure that innovation and creativity is fostering in the society. So concerning with this, the Indonesian government has many programs, particularly KRAF has many programs, which aim to intervene all the aspects related to the supply chain, from creating the capabilities for talent to build sustainable careers in the supply side, generating demand for creative content and IP in the demand side, and also to ensure that the market is operating smoothly, especially for SME in the production process. Next. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 8 implementation drivers to develop the creative industry sectors. These drivers form an ecosystem of the industry in which government should focus on. In this line, the Indonesian government has started a series of initiatives to bring creative industry at the forefront of sustainable development. For example, in the financial aspect, the government has reduced the interest rate for a small and micro business unit from 22% to 12%. In the aspect of in the intellectual property aspect, the government has released the regulation number 28 in 2014 about copyright, in which providing intellectual property protection for all creative content. In digital infrastructure, the government has launched e-commerce roadmap for stimulate creation and innovation in digital economy. So the Indonesian government has a lot of things, has done a lot of things in order to create a better and conducive ecosystem that will eventually lead the creative industry to be the backbone of the national economy. I think it's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abdul Rahim, and thank you for highlighting the importance to establish the ecosystem. For your information, if you want to know more about the data extension, the information, it's already
a very important part of our 2018 global report for reshaping cultural policies. And that's a very big recognition globally. And I believe that the next reshaping cultural policies Global Monitoring Report 2021 will also benefit from this particular meeting and the excellent progress which is being made. And the Indonesian work on enabling environment in terms of the law on creative economy, which is also building and is inspired by UNESCO 2005 Convention. So I think we have many good examples. And going back to the comprehensive education and SDG number 4 and building on our colleagues. So you already have the network of creative cities, so that needs to be upscaled for the whole country, giving more chance to all those cities and bringing more into UNESCO framework. But also let me mention, you have the World Heritage Sites, one of the very best in the world, like, for example, the Borobudur, the Prambanans, but also natural heritage, like the tropical rainforest heritage of Sumatra. That's where a lot of local culture, creativity comes in and providing local jobs to the people. Then also the UNESCO Global Geoparks. And what is, for example, in Lombok, in Mount Ranjani, and it has been highlighted also by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well as by our colleagues in Bapanas, that this may be a way forward for us. And UNESCO Biosphere Reserves. So we need to bring all them together with the help of your research and development and linking with the stakeholders to create enabling environment for inclusive, leaving no one behind, and making sure gender is well represented, and we empower all the stakeholders. In Indonesia, more than 260 million, but also linking with the world, Indonesia as a special place about creative economies. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabaskan. I think we already have all speakers because Mr. Hilmar Farid is unable to come. And if I can summarize a little bit about this session, that our lead speaker, Dr. Marisa, already highlighting and how we nurturing the sector and giving some social impacts to society. And Mr. Boy Brawi is also already like having presentation about the important how to establish the ecosystem. And thank you, Mr. Sabaskan, also giving the presentation about the UNESCO Convention on Freedom Expression that already ratified by many countries. I would like now, before I ask the floor to give some comments, maybe our lead speaker, Dr. Marisa, would like to give some view with the presentation of this speaker. I would like also to remind that this discussion is not only about Indonesia creative economy, which I believe all countries represent here, having some best practices to share and also challenges to share that we can discuss here. So please, Dr. Marisa, first, you can give some insight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the speaker's contribution. One of the things I wanted to mention was that my colleague has presented the results of the this is the new publication that has been done for Indonesia. And one of the things I was saying, we need a better understanding on how the sector works. And I want to congratulate and encourage everybody to have a look at this. One of the problems that we have is that we don't have the capacity to do comparable studies. We have individual studies, country studies, but data for common studies and to compare countries on the same basis is lacking. So I think one of the key things coming together is very, very important to encourage ourselves to be able to share experience and find common grounds so we can compare among different countries on the same basis how the economy, creative economy works. You know, I was checking the figures that you showed, and it is true that approximately worldwide we estimate that GDP, the creative economy, is about 3% of the GDP worldwide. But I think it's very, very important to see the differences in the different countries, because in Africa, for example, the contribution to creative economies to the GDP is about 1%, even though there is a great cultural heritage and an incredible arts and culture. So one of the things that you were talking about, the drivers, I think is really, really important to encourage finance for growth. We have been talking a lot in the UN about impact investment, and I think it would be very important to encourage not only government funding, but the business side. There are in the developed countries, there are incredible impact funds that are created by the private sector, and they are able to capture, provide funds for the creative sector, but at the same time doing something that is good for the social cohesion. Or for the SDGs, or for gender. So I think we need to explore the framework that you were saying, the development enabling environment, not only discussing and encouraging the state to provide help, but also the business community to be involved. I was very, very impressed with the gender figures. In UNCTAD, we are that you showed, that is very, very important. We in many countries, we think the creative sector is, there is a majority of women in many creative sectors, but we don't have the figures. Now, in UNCTAD, we have just developed, thanks to our statistical team, a very, very good methodology to capture gender in trade. And we are developing the methodology to apply that to the creative economy, because it's very, very important to show that we are, by promoting creative economy, we're also promoting a sector of the population that is in the minority, or is not well represented in other parts of the society. So I think this is very, very important. So I mentioned the Opus, and I really congratulate you for that. It has very, very good figures. In this book, you talk about incubation hubs. They have been very successful in many countries. We have been able to encourage an entrepreneurship hub in very poor cities, and it has really worked. Very small villages in poor countries, and the hubs have actually helped flourish the village and promote entrepreneurship. With regard to the value chain, I'd like to mention that this is very, very important in developing countries. What happens during the value chain is, by the time, in the process of production, the creation, production, and distribution, what we see in developing countries a lot is that by the time we get to the export market, there is a lot of leakages in the value chain of certain creative goods and services, meaning that they don't, by the time the product is finished, there is very little to gain from it. So we need to help and study the value chain, see where the leakages are, and help those areas, to promote those areas, and to see, for example, if we are producing a film, do we need writers because most of the scripts in many developing countries are not written by people in developing countries, but are imported. So by studying the value change, we can actually then reinforce the education system. What you were talking about, we need to develop skills to do things and to educating to work together. But I think it's very, very important, the studies of the value change, because then you will see where you need the skills to promote those skills targeted. I also think when you talk about the region and the regional development, and I think what happens in many developing countries is that the South-South cooperation in terms of creative economy is very strong and has proven to be very powerful. From the region where I come from, in Mercosur, where I come from, Argentina, but Mercosur has been a very powerful instrument in terms of.
Lisa, we are very limited time.
Sorry.
Please be brief.
I finished. Let me just. And the final thing is we need to. I agree with you, bringing all the stakeholders together and linking the stakeholders is very, very important in creative economy, the sharing economy. We need, this is crucial how we need to encourage the sharing economy, how instrumental it has been for the creative economy. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Before Excellency, we already also have here before you, Excellency, please, Mr. Jumala, and after that from Excellency Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me a floor today during this very important and very challenging forum, I think. We are talking about something new in the economic world, that is creative economy. So it seems to me that we have to be creative in how to develop our economy. Anyway, thank you very much for giving me a floor. Well, my name is Jumala. I'm the ambassador of Indonesia, posted in Vienna, Austria, and also accredited to UNIDO. As are already all aware that Indonesia is a multicultural state, multicultural country. Given that character, for us, creative economy is not something new. We inherit this talent, this passion from our grandpa, grandpa, long time ago. You know that. So we inherit this very long time ago, and for us, it is already built in. It is embedded in our values and norms. So I think it is very high time for Indonesia to host this kind of international forum for exchange best practices and lesson learned in order for us to promote and develop the creative economic cooperation in international level. Well, allow me in this particular moment that I would like to share with you with regard to how we envisage, how do we anticipate the unstoppable development of the creative economy. I would like to touch upon this issue from three dimensions. First, with regard to the economic dimensions of the creative economy. And the second, I would like also to touch about the political dimension of this issue. And last but not least, I will touch upon also in the very challenging point, that is creative economy viewed from the perspective of social culture. First, regarding the economic perspective, SMEs in Indonesia doing a business in creative economy is quite significant. The number of the contribution to our gross domestic product is about 7.4%. It's quite significant. And the quantity of the business, of the economic creativity business, the companies, I mean, it accounts about, don't be surprised, 93%. So please compare. The amount of the business itself is 93% for the creative and SMEs dealing with the creative economy, including the micro enterprises. But the contribution to the gross domestic product is only 7.4 something. What does that mean? To me, and it is a challenge for the government, all of us, that we have to improve the value added in economic creativity, including in Indonesia. So this is the challenge for us, I think, because we have to improve the added value of the creative economic activity, which is already embedded, which is already built in our culture. So this is the challenge for us. The second is political dimension of this creative economy. We have about 104.6 million labor in all line of business. And out of that amount, only about 14 million working in the creative economy. So it means that the economic creativity sector has a very high absorptive capacity. So it is good for the government to have a safety valve in the open unemployment. So it is easy to get a job in creative economy, just like in Bali. Bali is the most employed society in Indonesia. Why? Because they have creative economy. So again, from the political dimension, it is. Creative economy has a very high absorptive capacity. Now, last but not least, I would like to share with you with regard to the social culture dimensions of economic creativity. And Indonesia is very unique in this regard. It is very important, but challenging as well. I have some reason in saying that why it is challenging for us. Well, under this very item of our discussion is the social impact of the creative economy. That's very good topic, very good theme to discuss. Given the fact that Indonesia is multiculturalism, we have to realize that this country is very rich, and not only in the culture, but also in ethnic, not only in social values, but also in ethic, morals, and religious values. It is the fact of our country. It is a characteristic of Indonesian values. It seems to me that those values, ethnic, tradition, local wisdom, culture, whatsoever, ethic, norms, and even religion should complement each other. In order we can have a more improvement in our economic creativity. But in this regard, I would like to share with you one thing in sense of a challenging point of the economic creativity in social impact. Indonesia has a very rich in culture and also in religions. It seems to me that those values are being manifested in our daily activities. As I said, it is embedded, it is already built in our talent, in our character. But let me put this way. In promoting our creative economy, we also articulate the values of our religions. And sometimes the values of ethic, the values of religions, and values of local traditions, in some cases, it might be quote unquote, might be colliding each other. I give you an example. It is just for us.
Excellency, please be brief. We have only 50 minutes left for this session.
Well, I will be brief. In order to make some perspective, colliding each other. In one province, if we have a tradition to have a wedding costume, for a wedding costume, we have one particular style of wedding costume, which is not compatible with the religious values. So again, this is a challenge for us, how to reconcile this kind of possibility of the colliding values between the creative economy, culture, and the values of the religions. So this is one example. So having this fact, having learned this fact, I just would like to share with you, it is a time for us then to have a kind of inclusive dialogue. Not only governments, just like us, not only international organizations like us, but also we have to engage local leaders, local informal leaders, and even religious leaders, if we want to have to design, to set up a national creative economy. So the values of ethnic, tradition, cultures, and religion should not eliminate each other. Rather, they have to enrich, they have to improve each other, not to eliminate, not to nihilize each other. That's my point. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. The next is the Excellency, the Ambassador from Bahrain, who also a writer and write books in creative economy. And the next after Bahrain, we will have Cambodia, and also from Philippines. I would like to give one more opportunity. Please raise the nameplate, maybe from other stakeholder, not from government. Okay, Bahrain, Cambodia, and after that, Philippines. Yeah, after, Bahrain, Cambodia, Philippines, and after the fourth. Okay, please, Excellency.
Thank you very much, and sorry to take the floor. I know your time is pretty short. Kindly, I would like to speak about a general remark, not a specific case or a specific country, because the topic in agenda item number 2 is in general. Social impact. We're talking about the social impact. So we have economic, and also we have social and health. For the creative economy, we have...
His Excellency, sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
Can you bring the mic closer to you so, so everybody will clear? Sorry, thank you.
Is that better? Yeah. Kindly, I'm going to speak in general. I'm not going to bring any specific case or country. Our topic is basically a generic, general topic of social impact. So it's basically composed of economic, social, and also with the social comes health. For the creative economy, in general, it has two parts. First is something formal. It's like a formal economy where you have SMEs, micro startups, those who are registered, and most probably they have a grace period before paying taxes. So taxes are not paid right away, but eventually. So this is formal because they are already registered. But we also have the informal economy, which is unregistered. People could be working in the informal economy. They could have their own businesses in the informal economy. So we would like also to help them without hurting those who are in the formal sector. Otherwise, everybody will join the informal economy. Now, kindly, we have very important issues that perhaps we have to dwell upon. We have social security, healthcare, education, increasing and upgrading of skills, so it's quantity and quality, and also help these people get a better marketing environment. If, for example, somebody is making like a little box that could be used for either paper or jewelry, instead of making a cheap one that could be sold for $20. So maybe we will help them to make something much better, artistic, that perhaps with our help in marketing could be sold for maybe $100. So it's better gains for them and also for the country. So both those who are registered and those who are not registered, we have to help in a very enlightened and well-calculated way so that we don't hurt those who are registered. For the social impacts, of course, if we help an enlightened way, it will become more positive. But we also have to see what negative impacts are there in society if we do not. Sometimes we have, occasionally in some situations, outbursts of perhaps violence or violence against women. We have seen some bad habits coming up, like drinking of cheap alcohol and perhaps using of some drugs. Some people are not well educated. They might be susceptible to organized crime and extremism. So when we are helping them out, it's not only we are gaining economic gains, but we are also having societal harmony and peace and security in society. This is all good. It's good for the general welfare of society. Who is going to do the help? Of course, it has to be the government, but also selected
We are a non-government institution composed primarily of representatives from the collective creative industries. So we represent the creative businesses. We are working very closely with the Department of Trade and Industry of the Philippines that is actively formulating its own creative economy policy. And I have to be also very frank that we are taking a lot of inspiration from the KRAF. So congratulations for this very, very wonderful conference. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I have a few comments. The Philippine creative economy is about, contrary to the booklet, it's about 6.94% of GDP. that is based on the core copyright-based industries framework of WIPO. Currently, so that is counting primarily press literature, music, television, motion pictures, etc., so the copyright-based ones. I'm also involved in a project that is helping the National Commission on Culture and the Arts apply the, I believe it was the UNCTAD definitions of all of the creative sectors into a culture statistics framework. And I must say that is much harder to quantify, especially when we get to certain more intangible sectors. I highlight one, and this is also a question perhaps to the KRAF, because the KRAF lists culinary as 41% of the creative economy. For us, culinary is one of the most difficult to measure, because where does creative or cultural culinary sector start? Where in the Philippines, a Jollibee ends. So Jollibee, you know, is our biggest fast food, local and, you know, market share in the country. Is that a creative sector, or is that simply food service? So there are things like that. Now, from a very pragmatic point of view, where I would like to share is a specific study that I am, our Creative Economy Council is doing together with the Asian Institute of Management. We are doing a city-based creative industries mapping, where we are taking 2 cities. The first city is the central business district of Metro Manila, Makati City. This is the financial capital. The reason for that is that it has the richest statistics in terms of registered businesses. So we are taking the business permits and licensing office and using the cultural statistics framework, mapping those that are registered as either as a creative industry. The second city that we chose is the city of Baguio. The city of Baguio is the first Philippine UNESCO creative city, which I had helped in its application last year. And it's a creative city for craft and folk arts. We're applying the same methodology that we are using for the city of Makati, which is very strongly in software, game development, and advertising, to the city of Baguio, which is craft and folk arts. And it's already revealing some very unique challenges. For the city of Baguio, most of the participants are unregistered, independent workers, and very difficult to quantify what exactly they earn and how many people they employ. For the city of Makati, Central Business District, data rich, but also a lot of mislabeling of creative sectors. So for example, under game development, you also have a lot of online gambling companies. You know, they do software for online gaming, but it's actually online gambling. So my interest in this conference, before that, perhaps the one thing though that, and this is also kudos to UNESCO for the Creative Cities program. One of the things though that pushing for creative economy has done is it gives its citizens a source of pride. The moment that the city of Baguio got the UNESCO Creative Cities recognition, suddenly the creative and cultural workers of Baguio had a legitimate seat at the table with the city government of Baguio and are now co-creating their own policies for sustained development of the city's creative and cultural sector. And there are about 2 or 3 other cities that have approached our council now asking how can they replicate what Baguio has done. So this is just an open sharing and perhaps a couple of questions that we are facing now as we map out our own creative economy strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last ones this is from communities, stakeholders from civil society. Miss Demi, Civil Society Association. If you want to give some question and comment, please be brief.
Take the microphone in front of you.
Thank you. Hi, I won't take anybody's time. My name is Demi, and I'm a concerned citizen towards this universe. And I thank you so much for letting me having the floor. And everybody who's been giving a speech are so greatly point taken. Number one is like the GDP. If I may point in that, it's like to challenge the world in the economical scale. And I love the way that the first key speaker note talk about developing country. Not the first, not the second, not the third. Because it's either underdeveloped, developed, or developing. And Indonesia as a developed country, thank you very much. And secondly, it's a government word politic. There's nothing we can do about that. Leave it to the government. And then the third one. Sorry, I have to do this because the taxes and social security. Taxes, social security paid, hopefully, has been applied here in Indonesia by the president currently, and the crimes which also will be reduced when social security and tax paid. And God forbid, touch wood, everything will be under control. And then the fourth, multicultural. What can we do to combat the new millennial? The new millennial, I'm talking the new millennial. People who love the gadget. And me, myself, who love just to do a normal notepad. And I'm sorry, can we do something about it? When we hear, I'd like people to hear, to listen, to talk, and to absorb, not to just do a selfie, not just to been there, done it, that's it. And then after that, come here, goes out. Please, everybody, help me in bettering the world. Please help me from the old school, becoming the new millennial, and then the next generation. Thank you so much for this opportunity and the floor for me. Thank you, and I'm Demi. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Demi. I think we have to continue to the next agenda because we have a very limited time for the next agenda. The next agenda, I will summarize all this discussion by the end of the day. And the next agenda is the policy coming up with the right creative regulation. Hopefully that the commentators and who wants to give some comments and insight can keep it into the next agenda that we can save some time. For this third agenda about the policy, allow me to invite Mr. Nicholas Buchot, Senior Advisor to UN Habitat, Founding Principal and Co-owner Renaissance Urbane as the lead speaker to kick off our discussion under the Agenda 3 policy. Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bonjour. Good morning, everyone. I will try to give you just a few initial elements about our topic, which is coming up with the right creative regulations out of previous meetings held to prepare this conference, Friends of the Creative Economy. And then I'm looking for our speakers, Ambassador Judith Nemeth. Okay. Good morning. Ari Giuliano. Ari. Hey. Good morning. And do we have a Director for Art and Culture of South Africa? Yes? Yes, here? Okay. So, I'm sorry, because this topic might not be as enthusiastic as the broad approach to the topic of creative economy, but it's quite important not to miss the point at this stage of the discussion about what are we meaning by the right creative regulations. In the aftermath of the first preparatory meeting of WCCE, we came out with a number of recommendations, right, about how to come up with those regulations. There were 7 points. I will just mention them so that it will help us have a reminder. First concluding point was to support the creation of what we named as enabling ecosystems. Right? It's not just about principles or about decisions, but we have seen that in previous also presentations, including from our colleague from the Philippines. We need enabling ecosystems, right? At city level, at neighborhood level, at regional level, at national level, and at regional and at multilateral level, right? So this, and I'm handing that to the speakers from Hungary, from South Africa, and from KRAF about this possibility. What is the right scale to consider the establishment of more enabling ecosystems? The second point is intellectual property. We cannot miss the issue of intellectual property. Pariki, in this introductory statement, referred to the fact that most often when we are talking about creative economy, we are talking about small companies or small entrepreneurs, individual entrepreneurs, but we are also talking about multi-billion global corporations. And the question of how to support local entrepreneurship through the development of intellectual property is an extremely important point, which goes to point number 3 about IP financing. Who will finance the intellectual property of small and medium-sized companies and medium-sized entrepreneurs in the global context, where in the music, in the cinema, in the internet, etc., you've got global major players, right? This is a very important aspect, not just to grant finance from the top, but also to make sure that, I would say, everybody committed to work in the fields of the creative industries can get access, and easy access, to IP finance. And when you're saying that, you can also imagine that you need to have a widespread effort to explain why it is important, and etc. Fourth point is IP commercialization, but I will be short on that. It gets back to the previous one. I would like to insist on the fifth point, which came out of previous discussions preparing for this conference, which is how do you connect traditional culture, which is really also part of our discussion, with the issue of intellectual property. The ambassador of Indonesia in Vienna mentioned customs about marriage and etc. And you can see that sometimes vernacular culture is very popular and is a driver of growth and jobs. But it is quite easy to copy that and make a product out of that and then sell it without any kind of gain for the original communities. And this is a really important point. The sixth point is about ethics. When we are talking about regulations for the creative economy, we are talking about building livelihoods and supporting the creation of jobs, but the question of ethics cannot be absent of the discussions. Then the seventh point, I think you will all like it, because it is referring to all stakeholders' understanding, which means that in order to support good regulation systems, it needs to be a shared understanding from governments, from communities, from businesses, from the civil society, and etc. And this will not be achieved overnight. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm now turning to our speakers and experts for this roundtable, I would like to hear from you about your vision on this topic of how to create good or enabling regulation systems, the right creative regulation systems. How do you consider, how do you value the importance of IP, of intellectual property in that context? And maybe briefly also share part of your experience and also expectations about this conference today and the future development of this network, Friends of the Creative Economy. Let me just conclude by saying that in Indonesia, I'm lucky enough to also be part of an important civil society-led movement, the Indonesia Creative Cities Network, which has recently issued a white paper on creative economy and advocating for creative economy to be a key performance indicator for regional government. And I think this might be a way also to connect global issues with local policy making. So thank you very much for sharing these few initial thoughts. And maybe we should begin with you from Hungary, Judith.
Thank you so much. A very warm welcome to everyone. Here I would like to talk a little bit about what Hungary did so far. I want to raise a little bit the spectrum because we are speaking about creative economy, but it's important when we're speaking about government and especially like regulation, financing and what the government does is why we are involving. For Hungary, it's a very, very important aspect that we strongly believe that we can raise the competitiveness of our country by investing into research, development, and innovation. Because right now, this is what is really increasing the value and also what is very much contributing to the GDP. So what Hungary did is that we are very much dedicated to it, that when we are inviting, for example, big investors to Hungary, or when we are cooperating with big multinational companies, we are ensuring that they have all the support, that they are doing research and development and innovation in our country, cooperating with our young talents and also with our creative economy. Right now, from this year on, we have a special ministry just dedicated for that. We have a Ministry of Innovation and Technology. And they are also the ones which are cooperating with these companies and building up more and more research centers, innovation centers, incubators in Hungary. We spend over 1.5% of the Hungarian GDP right now on innovation. And what we also do is to support, and here we need to distinguish because there are the big multinational companies, which are really the huge ones, where it's important that they bring their research and development and innovation centers to the country itself. But there are also small and medium-sized enterprises and startups. What we do is we give altogether financial support. That means that using EU funding, which is there, but also Hungarian government funding, we do projects where we encourage to do research and development centers in the country. And with this, we can finance approximately like 35 to 65% of some projects, which is quite high if you think of that. We also ensure some tax cuts because, of course, you need to know the governments are usually, and especially when it comes to creative economy, it's very hard to evaluate what we should really invest in, where we should really put money in and where not. And here we are very much relying on the big companies again. And in order to increase for them the cooperation, we also ensure for them tax cuts, which are up to 10%. Also, we have some state-owned venture capital funds, which I believe is also very, very important. And these state-owned venture capital funds, we have two of them. They are already financing startups in the pre-seed and also in the seed stage. They are kind of acting like silent partners, and they can be, again, up to 65% ownership gain. And these are mainly, they are convertible bonds, which in this way are helping very much newcomers, especially small enterprises, to establish. Again, we are building up and we are helping to create innovation and incubation centers, which are, especially when it comes to, for example, industrial innovation, it's sometimes very hard because we see it, especially Hungary has a lot of universities, in terms of engineering. There are a lot of young people with good ideas, but when it comes, for example, for industrial innovation, it's very hard for them to test. It's very hard. They have an idea, but they don't know, they don't have the finances, they don't have the centers where they can try it, and we are helping and we are trying to enforce to have kind of research centers where they can really work together with the industry, test their ideas, and really see if that's feasible, if that's approachable on the market. When we speak about creative economy, digitalization is very, very important. Hungary has a very strong digital welfare program, which means that we are not only bringing we are on the top 5 best 4G penetrated countries in the world. That means our 4G network is one of the best. You will not find a place in Hungary where you will not have network access. It's even in the subways you can speak on a phone. It's incredible. And this also means that we, of course, digitalized all the state-owned and all the state and everything. You can right now do all your things from your tax regulations up to everything. You can do it online, which is very important. But we also try to include this into the education, that we are doing a very strong digital education already in the schools, starting from the very low, from the primary schools. And we are very strongly putting an emphasis on that, and also in the elderly generation, because we believe that's also very, very important. And when it comes to smaller size, then we are definitely there when it comes to startups. And Hungary is one of the capitals in Europe which is very strong in our startup ecosystem. We have already a lot of startups, which I'm sure you know, Prezi, Ustream, iGo, these are all Hungarian. They were all invented by Hungarians, and we try to have right now what we are doing. It's a long-term process. What we have right now is a kind of startup campus where we are collecting those startups, creating for them the environment, also that they can learn from each other, they can cooperate, and they have the environment where they can grow. Also, what we have is another organization called Enterprise Hungary, which is helping these startups to venture into foreign and multicultural, and also into other territories. Because sometimes they have ideas and Hungary might be too small for that, or might be an international cooperation, might be very, very useful, but especially when you are a small startup in seed stage or already a little bit more developed, but still you might not have the capabilities, the finances, to go abroad or to find international partners. And that's where the government is coming in, and that's where we are partly financing this organization called Enterprise Hungary, which is lending a helping hand for these smaller startups to go abroad, to help them find partnerships. And you will see here that at the Hungarian stand we have 2 very, very good startups which are here, for example, cooperating with Indonesia, one in the tourism sector and the other one also offering different kind of applications. And there it was again a very crucial part that we were involving, we were helping to bridge the gap and to help to find them partners. And it seems that these startups are right now very, very good growing and successful in Indonesia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You are referring to a number of items that will be useful to take with us for the rest of the day. You've been mentioning the issue of tax cuts and fiscal regime to support innovation. You've been mentioning the issue of experimentation and test in experimental mode or in real life mode, and this is really part also of the equation. And you have been insisting also on the role of startups. And I understand with that we need also to talk about technology, right, and technological innovation, Mr. Chair and Madam Co-Chair, when we are talking about creative economy, and not only, even if it is core cultural issues, and a culture of innovation and sharing a cultural innovation. Thank you very much, and we will get back to you. Let me also mention that on your tables, you've got a number of documents. I want to mention that. You've got the Bali Declaration on Creative Economy, as it is, a one-page document, and you've got the action plan corresponding to the Bali Declaration of Creative Economy. I will not comment on that now, but I just want to remind each and every one of us that this document exists. It's on your table, and while we are circulating among the different speakers and ideas, please feel free to consider that, and if you've got any urgent remark, to share that at the end of our session today, right? I just wanted to mention that. If you have a comment on that, maybe Ricky? No? Okay. So thank you. We will now move to our other speaker in the framework of this coming up with the right creative regulation, Mr. Ari Giuliano Gemma, Deputy of IPR Facilitation and Regulation at KRAF. So let us please share with us your vision and your action from the point of view of KRAF in Indonesia on this issue of creative regulation systems, maybe creative bureaucracy, and IP issues. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I would like to present, making a presentation we have. If we talk about the policy, then we talk about the role of government in developing creative economy. And for us, and also for many literatures about the development of creative economy. Next. The role of government is to stimulate the development of a supportive ecosystem, because to develop creative economy, we cannot doing top-down development, because creative economy actor, they are free men, they have a freedom to express, so we cannot conduct the top-down development. So the stimulating the development of ecosystem is very important. Next. Okay, next. The source of the creative economy, as we know that the local strength of the creative economy, cultural heritage, science and technology. Many countries have a different local strength. Like Indonesia, according to our president, in the opening book of the Opus, he said that if we try to compete with Germany and China in high-tech industries, we will lose. We will lose. But in creative economy, the odds are in our favor. So we know that the local strength of ours is a cultural heritage. That, as many speakers mentioned, that we have more than 17,000 islands. We have more than 700 tribes, and we also have more than 1,000 local language actively speaking right now. And we also have many small kingdoms and sultanates that drove stone and wood craftsmanship from the construction of temples and palace to the small-scale artisan product. That is our local strength. So if we talk about the stimulate the ecosystem, we talk about the issues that certainly faced by the creative economy development. Next. There is research and development, financing, infrastructure, marketing, next, IP and regulation, and then partnership. That's why the policy will be should be cover the 6 main issues to the development of the creative economy. But we have also the notice that we have to prepare the regulatory framework. Next. That consists of next. This is the investment, because we have the regulatory framework to make the investment easily in our country. Like in Indonesia case, that when we open the film industry for investment from foreign investment, then the film industry in Indonesia growth very positively. And then we also talk about protection, but we will not talk about the trade protectionism. We talk about the IP protection. We talk about the protection from the piracy. We talk about the protection from the unfair competition. We talk about the protection from the bad ethic of the business. We have to have a regulatory. Next. We also have a regulatory framework for the activities to people easily to express their creativity, their freedom to express their creativity, so they can easily make a business or they make a partnership with others to make a business in creative economy. Next. And we also have regulatory for incentives, because incentive is very important. Also, like a tax incentive, we also make a incentive to IPR registration, because in many countries IPR registration is not cheap. It's very expensive. So maybe for the IPR registration, also when we establish the legal corporation, also the small business like people in the creative economy need incentive to help them to build the local legal corporation, like something like that. And we hope the regulatory framework, this regulatory framework can the outcome will be the contribution to GDP, and also to the import export, and then also to the job creation. I think that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this useful reminder of the different bits and pieces of this puzzle of creating enabling regulation systems. And now, unless we have any comments, I would like to go to the Director General for Art and Culture of South Africa, Mr. Vusumuzi Mkhize. Please share with us, your vision of the topic, and you can also. This is why I wanted you to be the last one of our three speakers, react on the vision which our colleague from Hungary shared, and the vision from our colleague of Indonesia. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. With the Friends of Creative Economy and the request for us to make a presentation, maybe we start with the very essence. We asked ourselves, inclusive growth, inclusive economy, but inclusive for who? Inclusive of what? And in this regard, South Africa had to look at a number of mechanisms to respond to this challenge. And to do that, then we have what we call South African Cultural Observatory, which helps us to do what we call measuring and valuing South Africa's cultural and creative economy. This is a research arm of South Africa's government in the area of arts, culture, particularly in the creative economy. The National Development of Arts and Culture then was tasked with the mapping, measuring, valuing, and understanding the creative cultural economy. So this research arm is a voice of reason because it needs to provide data, it needs to conduct research, it needs then to come with recommendations. For instance, the issue of funding that was raised and financing. Out of the research done, it was quite clear that there was underfunding of this sector, both by government but also by private sector. And therefore, when we developed the white paper as a policy paper, one of the key things that came out was clear that we need to deal with what we call a mixed financing model. This model then addresses where are the areas of funding and the sources of funding, whether it will be government and whether it will be in form of a loan, or whether this funding should be in form of a seed funding for the start-up businesses and the young artists, or it would be a venture capital where people will have very low interest to pay compared to the trend of having higher taxes, so that they are excluded from a high level of tax, which then creates a problem for them. So we looked at all and the interest rates that the banks would provide or charge them. Now, the strategic approach was therefore then to say in 2011, let's begin with the process of repositioning the arts, culture, and heritage sectors as core players in government's program of action for social cohesion, creation of sustainable jobs, and ensuring social economic development. In this way, we then were able to come with a new concept called Mzansi Golden Economy Strategy. The Mzansi Economy Strategy is our new gold. I know that most countries are talking about the new oil industry, but for us it was the new gold, because the economy of South Africa is based more on gold, on mineral resources underground. We had to shift that focus, and this then process also was interacting with the international trends of refining the collection and analysis of statistics on the cultural and creative economy. So the South African Cultural Observatory then was to close this gap in statistics, because you cannot have policy that is evidence-based unless you've got research being done. Policy, for it to be practicable, to respond to the current demands and future trends, you need to have research, and then you'll have evidence-based policy. So we established that. So why was it necessary? We had a very inadequate level of information and relevant credible data on the creative economy. There was no instrument to disaggregate creative industry data across domains and spatial contexts and configured to enable trend analysis. We did not have much of the data to inform policy approaches to the creative economy. There was recognition by the sector that deeper understanding is required on the impact of policies geared towards promoting creative industries and their policy instruments. Therefore, this was a requirement for observatory. The next slide then says what SACO does. In this slide, we are saying they champion evidence. That is to be South Africa's primary source of cultural economic statistics and provide key indicators to assess the value of the sector and track the changes over time. 2, influence policy, to analyze the trends to inform future policy, resource allocation decisions, because one of the issues is inequality that you have in the sector and in the country. You will know how to gear your resources if research tells you that in the area of women and the youth, those are underfunded and yet they have a huge potential to develop the economy. So research assisted us to indicate that these levels of participation in the community are low, but also what are the constraints. So the policy had to also respond on how then to support them in those areas. And the formerly marginalized groups that had not high participation in the sector being underfunded. But also to share insight, to provide accessible knowledge and information, play a catalytic role of new innovative research projects, build capacity. This is critical because any participation in the sector, for government to have this inclusive growth, you need to have skilled workforce, but also empowered people who can be able to participate. Without capacity building and training, you cannot succeed in this creative economy. This then talks to what the facilitator was raising about copyright and intellectual property issues. one of the areas we identified that is a challenge in the creative economy development was the exploitation of the artistic acumen of those who create these artifacts, but they could not gain anything from their work. That is why South Africa then decided to ratify the Marrakesh Treaty, because it also talks to those who have disabilities, but also to then reposition the white paper over and above the international instrument. Now we are dealing with a new revised white paper. So policy then, building capacity and then IP means that people understand the value of their work and they feel that it's protected. It then inspires them to do their work even more, to be more innovative. Finally, because of time, what does this cultural observatory do? As I've indicated, one of the things they do then is monitoring and evaluation of cultural events, but also they provide physical and online access to cultural information. The opportunities that we have identified is that then the disaggregated data has been made available, it's collected. We now have a baseline on what are the challenges in the sector, what we need to address via the policy that is most evidence-based. The last point is about fourth industrial revolution. We see this as crucial in South Africa, and it was identified as an area that creates great opportunities. But it will require reorientation of curriculum to prepare the young people to take advantage of this. If education curriculum as it stands now is not shaped to respond to the fourth industrial revolution, particularly with the young people, then we will lose the greatest opportunity in the creative sector. So that is what we would like to say. We then have the issue of what the future holds, and we believe South Africa is fully conscious of this digital transformation and the changing nature of the game, including the nature of work, economic and models of governance, and access and social movements. Therefore, we must take advantage of this fourth industrial revolution. But policy must always safeguard the sector based on research and evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this concise but very comprehensive presentation of the last years of South Africa policy making on the issue of the creative economy. I am recapturing a few words from your presentation, which is you have insisted on skills. I think this is very important. But you have also underlined that creative entrepreneurs and community development face a lot of constraints, right? It's not just about having ideas or etc., but it's also about meeting those constraints, and that's very important. Referring to skills, and I think, Mr. Chair, this will be important also in the long run for the success of the initiative Friends of the Creative Economy, connecting that to deep industrial changes. And thank you for referring to Industry 4.0 and to the new industrial and technological revolution which is underway. This is an important point. And the last is you refer to in the documents as the creative economy as this new gold. And this is very much appreciated. I was thinking, listening to you, of a completely different context in the Russian Far East, in Yakutia, which is not very well known, which is like minus 60 degrees Celsius in winter, which looks like isolated, but now the new governor is also implementing an agenda on creative economy, referring to this new gold about skills and digital transformation. And that's, I don't know if there is gold in Bali, but but sure, there is this new goal, and it has been there for a while. So thank you very much. Time is running by, but we are sticking to our schedule, so that's good news. Do we have observations or comments about what our colleagues from KRAF, from South Africa and from Hungary have been sharing with us? Do you have any comments that, or any observation that you would like to make on the presentations? Yes? No? Yes? We can take one or two comments? Yes? We will start with you.
Yes, thank you, Nicholas. Hello, my name is Laura Anderson, and I was just wondering to the chair, but also to all members here. I have a great interest in the future of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and Judith, a lot of the things that you said. So I was wondering if there was a way that we could perhaps consolidate that interest and think about ways that we could really move forward in a really rapid way. So.
Okay, so entrepreneurial ecosystem, okay, that's one point. Second point, Marisa?
Very, very quickly to congratulate the job that the South African Observatory is doing. They have a very, very good publication on trade issues and BRICS. And I think I would encourage you to go to the website and download that, because it really shows how we can compare certain countries and the potential for trade.
Okay, so thank you to refer to this. About publications from UNCTAD, I want to underline one recent work which I found and very interesting also in the context of what we are discussing here, is the role of artificial intelligence in shaping future trade negotiations, right? So it brings us to something a little bit different from the creative economy, but on the other hand, we see that this is happening, right? And I would like to hear in the continuing of our days references to how to connect creative economy with those mega issues, the rise of artificial intelligence and the deep impact also through the management of data and big data. These are very important fields. Okay, so thank you for your two comments. Yes, one here.
Yes, Paolo from the Philippines again. Maybe just a side comment first on artificial intelligence. This is one of our big concerns. The Philippines is highly dependent, or one of the biggest sectors is the business process outsourcing sector, which is voice and knowledge process management, which is very concerned, I would say, by the rise of artificial intelligence and automation. This is the reason why there is a lot of attention now on developing the creative sectors. Perhaps just to build on the comment on entrepreneurship, the area that is of interest for us is how do you recognize and incentivize online creative workers, particularly the freelancers. This is the area that is most difficult for us to capture, but already from the likes of Upwork, Behance, and new firms like Design Pickle and Talent House, they're looking at the Philippines as one of the primary sources for outsourced creative work to the US and other English-speaking markets. So how do you begin to incentivize, grow, and formalize this largely informal sector is a key question from a regulatory point of view.
Thank you very much. Do we have other comments? If you are in the room and not in the first table, and if you want to share a view or a comment or a remark, please just ask for a mic, stand up, right? We are in working mode here today. Even if it looks very official, we are also in working mode. So do you have any, I'm turning to our colleagues here or here. Do you have any remarks? Yes, please. Just grab the mic.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohammed Sharaf. I'm from the United Arab Emirates. I've been hearing my colleagues. Unfortunately, we were not part of the working group. I've seen the presentation that was given about the governance and the policy that we are working on. One thing which came to my mind is after listening to our colleague from Philippines, when he compared the creative economy and said whether Jollibee is part of it or not. So do we have a mechanism how to measure which industry at what size should be part of the creative economy? Because you also asked the question about Philippines, whether the numbers mentioned in this document here is correct or incorrect. Basically, is it that whatever we believe is the right industry, or is the standard that we have amongst the countries here? What are the standards and the measure that we should be using to include the industries as part of and what size of businesses are part of the creative economy? Thank you.
Well, thank you indeed, because this will be a question for the years to come, I think. Huh? It has been said in the opening statements that we are especially referring, but not only, to small and medium-sized entrepreneurs and companies, but you are absolutely right to point out that this is not only that, right? And beside it, and I'm leaving it to the chair and co-chair if they want to comment, or we can do that also later on today, about the standards that can be used in the future to really give a shape to the creative economy that can be shared. And if the intention, and I think we all share that, is to make the creative economy a knowledgeable and accountable part of the global economy in the years to come, this issue of standards and measurements of key performance indicators will really be critical to put on the table. Right? Are there any other comments? One or two comments before we wrap up? Yes? One here, one here. Okay, we have four. Okay.
I will try to be brief. I'm Charles Vallerand. I'm from Montreal, Canada, attending this important meeting as a UNESCO expert of the 205 Convention. I just want to flag to participants that UNESCO also has a very sort of dynamic process under the 205 Convention, a program to build capacity of countries that have ratified to implement the convention, which includes statistics, which includes policies. We now have close to 100 of the so-called periodic reports. What are countries doing to beef up basically the capacities of artists, of creators, under the term of cultural industries? Not as broad as the creative economy, would not include such things as crafts and design and fashion and food, but really would focus on the core cultural industries, which would be film, television, music, performing arts, and so on and so forth. It's also now a database. UNESCO has established a very interactive and very dynamic way to request examples of best practices, of policies at all levels. Local governments, regional governments, and national governments. So it is there for the international community to pull from. And as we have now, 10 years and more of that experience, UNESCO parties are looking to improve the reporting mechanism. So we have better statistics and we have comparability. So I think it's important that this be known. The assistance capacity program is being renewed. That's with the assistance of the Swedish Development Agency for another 4 years. So probably 10 to 12 countries will be able to benefit. And also the European Union has also reconfirmed its commitment to assist with UNESCO request for beefing up the capacity to develop cultural industries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is useful to remind that there is literature indeed on the subject, and thank you to remind also that culture accounts for a large part, but we need to also include now other elements, right, in such reporting. So we had like the gentleman here. Yes, please introduce yourself. Take a mic or come in the front if you don't have a mic. We really need to have a microphone because the ballroom is really huge.
My name is Dr. Nasir Tamara. I'm the chairman of Indonesian Writers Guild. And I welcome very much this initiative of organizing the first World Conference on Creative Economy. I think this conference is timely, very important, if it could help to create more jobs, to create more economic growth, to create more social justice, to talk about human rights, and the need to build a peace among the nation. So, from here, my suggestion is, we should continue, I'm sure the committee has thought about this, to energize this initiative in Bali conference, to make it adopted in the United Nations, or to do it worldly. I'm grateful that my government supported this initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. As you can see, and we will wrap up in a few minutes because there is lunch coming and we have also a dense agenda in the afternoon. But if you can see, in the afternoon we will talk about international cooperation and the possible establishment of a center of excellence of creative economy. And then we will talk about more in detail about the Bali Declaration of Creative Economy. And I think we will try to answer this issue of how to bring all efforts and the creative economy and World Conference on Creative Economy and its results to the UN and broadly, right? So stay with us in the afternoon. Thank you for your remarks. We had two other remarks. From where? Here, sorry, my apologies. Yes, the gentleman at the back, really at the back. Yes, with a hand. Stand up.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Mpigalele Mgwene from...
No, not you, not yet. Just behind you. Yes. Stand up, please. Yeah. It's not a gentleman. Sorry, sorry, madam. Apologies.
Thank you. My name is Helene George. I'm the Director of Creative Economy and also a UNESCO expert for the International Fund for Cultural Diversity. I just want to say thank you for presenting this wonderful opportunity for us all to gather and talk about this really important area that I've been passionate about for over 2 decades and worked in. I think it's really important in terms of to answer a question that came from the floor on the statistics and what's included. We know that in Britain there has been a longitudinal collection of data on creative industries, and one of the things that we know from that and we learn from that, and in a lot of the creative economy forums that we are moving away from with that learning, is that the statistics for the creative economy have included 40% software. And software generally wouldn't be considered what we're talking about in nations, and many nations in the creative economy. So the data, when we're talking about contributions to GDP and the creative economy, is significantly skewed by 40% of that statistic being software. So I think we need to be really cautious when we're talking about what is the contribution, although there are many opportunities and it is a growth area. The second thing that we can learn from the British example is also that rather than making creative economy more inclusive, it has actually made it more exclusive. And the data and trends that come out of Britain are that it is more upwardly mobile, middle and upper class that are finding access to creative industry training, creative industry opportunity and employment. And that hasn't enabled a more inclusive society. In fact, the evidence has been the opposite. And that means that people who are just can rely on their own talent and creativity have been excluded from the creative economy rather than included. I think that we need to be really aware of that, and there are definitely ways for us to move forward with strategies to ensure that we do genuinely have an inclusive creative economy. But we just need to be aware of the learnings and the approaches that have been done in other countries that haven't bared that fruit.
Thank you very much. And we are precisely here, right, to hear and share experiences from really across the world. One last comment, the gentleman here, sorry I interrupted you, please, yes.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mpigalele Mgwene from South Africa. My take on this was that by nature, we know that there's, as culture and heritage, the cultural studies are looking at its contribution to the economy as well as an employment. And then that needs a quantification. Now, I think what is important about the data that is being collected there is the reliability, validity of that kind of information. So my proposal is that in order to ensure that that happens, that we get quality data, I know that each and every country has a statistical agent. Like in South Africa, we have the Stats SA, which is the quality insurer in terms of collecting a statistic in South Africa. I think now what should be happening that since the sector is moving towards that direction, that maybe you work in collaboration with the Stats SA in the case of South Africa, in other countries, statistical agencies, to ensure that, the data that is collected there is reliable and valid. Maybe to such an extent that to create that you call the cultural satellite account. I don't know how possible that. I know that may take a long time because in most countries that have established the cultural satellite account, it takes something like on average 8 years. But I think that is a good idea, that while you have that instrument of collecting data, then you are in the process of establishing the satellite account.
Thank you very much. It's an important point again, and I'm handing that to the chair of this meeting. The question of the data that will be collected in the future to measure what creative economy is about, and the mix of quality and quantity in that regard. And referring to the other remark of our UK colleague, I think it's very important also to have a clear understanding of the place and of the role of the software industry when we are talking about creative economy, especially when we are talking about global impact, whether to include that or not, and if we include that really, and it is, as part of the creative economy, be able to demonstrate how it is really part of the creative economy, as well as, I would say, other dimensions of what we have been talking about, such as cultural aspects. So thank you very much for contributing to this discussion and for sharing your passion for this organization, future organization of the Friends of the Creative Economy. If there is no further notes, I think we can wrap up now our roundtable. Do we have one last comment from the speakers, from Hungary, from South Africa? No? Okay, so thank you very much. Our agenda for this morning is now over, right? Will be lunchtime. I'm handing the floor to Ibu Indah and to Ricky Pesik to, yes, thank you. You can thank our speakers.
Thank you very much,
to share with us the next steps of today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buchot. We already have 2 agendas this morning, and we have a very fruitful discussion. Hopefully that we can come back after this lunch break. Now we're gonna have lunch break for 1 hour. I'm gonna send it to the MC for the announcement and some information about the later agenda. So thank you very much. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Before we leave, at what time are we going back to this room? You will say it. Okay, because it's important.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Allow me to make some announcements before we leave the room for break. We will adjourn the meeting for 1 hour for our lunch. Lunch will be served for the participants at the Jimbaran Cafe, the foyer, under the escalator. And then the speakers and the VIP will have lunch at the foyer of Uluwatu. And also, may I have some announcement that tomorrow we will have ministerial meeting, and we are expecting head of delegations of the government's representative to present there with the format of 1+1. And we will have break we will have a break for lunch, and we will return to this meeting room in an hour. That means at 1 p.m., at 2 p.m. So that's all for the announcement, and please enjoy your lunch. Thank you very much. Please excuse me, we will